Yemamu nyina jo makwa ba United Television so enne ebre asu sekase a nsaka na nwure yede ni nyina emamo ba mo nche dia Efiship House Abeka Junction enkran DSTV channel 360 obehwe kase ni watie bi ewo ho asida ekwa ama special eyes ensuo ni nie ensuo ni tiapo ede eno a ene yede enum na ye enum yede emamo na yede kakase enso na wonya wo nso ana de ensuo bi asomom eyi sanse ekoyie pa special drinks so flavors bebre na ewom ubenya strawberry kakra ubenya malt ubenya grapes ubenya fun time orange ene de keka ho omo eboye nchidom ye wi a ye sika best point savings and loans and best assurance omo amaye echigina pa ewo sika fm enwekwe nti ye de nsam no eba de oba beti no ebi eni
energy minister say ECG wono mo akonhoma sika ye budget ya wode ebeto ahweye nanimu no nanka 500 million Ghana cedis say ye ka say wa twemu mienu tinton ese fa ene ye de bema wo mu esan so wo mo akra no wo mu niema bi enye fe
Bank of Ghana sika krabia batan ewo mai emo na sika krabia nkuma ni nyina akopebosen a susudui a wo de beto o se eno so ene wo mugina de bosen ama monetary policy rate no na 27% watu e de akọ 28%.
High Court ashe ese owura edubu ahe wona ne yema wonum bail yibi na sika wode eto wonchi so 160 million Ghana cedis.
Enene na wotri kumase adumare ho sema esiye wo blue light anopahema eja etoto amanfo shops mu a ehye na ehye no NPP for abomodin akopiem ene wo momusu esun wo wie ya 100,000 Ghana cedis odi ama wo mo
sasu ne yakwa manso dade ase a ahemfo ene adehye wo ho kire se empuntuo pa ma onipa asetena mu konkan no enya ade akro no ehyeda ewo bi nti osempanyufo se omekọ wonom emoa
yade mo bakwa kopiem ewo bunu East Mantam no emo ye hwe red enuboni a se mabuni asomu no ma so no ko no mo enom no ensunsanso a enya ewo mo so
ensemafofo bi ka wenom ho ene na nwumre yaje adwa ede esomo enuanum mienu a yebekenka kase amamo eyeme ama saponkumankuma jesi menimenu aba
obahima efiachire
afe yentinsi ensem no emu asuye ya ehwe ahoden ne ho nsem so afo a woda no yewura John Jinapo ede ato edwase ECG wonomo ede budget ebeto wapono so ese wonomo pe 250 million Ghana cedis na ye kase ye die se sika no eyade a efa ene wo mu benya ne senti ne se wo chemu a wo se enti ya aba ye fa containers ya yira wo port no ho ni nyina akeka ho enu nti na sesei sa budget na ye 50 million Ghana cedis a wo pede adi wonjuma no enya de a won sabeka na emu fa ye 250 ene ye de ema wo no.
Mr. Speaker, if you go to the tables, for instance, in year 2023, their approved planned procurement was 935 million. That's less than 1 billion. By the end of the year, they had procured 8.3 billion. 7.3 billion more than their budget could accommodate. And so you had so many containers arriving at the port, so many containers arriving at the port, they are not able to clear, and that gives way for these things. Mr. Speaker, 2024, their budget was 1.3 billion for procurement. They ended up procuring 8.2 billion. That is the source of the problem. And I hold the view that whoever was responsible and the MD approving, Mr. Speaker, is even worrying. If you look at the procurement, the MD has a threshold of $1 million. A day they sign 20 contracts, all of them 900. These are the key issues that I am focusing on. And so let me tell those politicians, and excuse my language, Mr. Speaker, I believe that some of the criminals are part of it. On social media, and trying to muddy the waters. Your days are numbered. Mr. Speaker, the containers have serial numbers. They are received at the port. They are entered into a document. There's a manifest for it. before they move on, somebody has to sign for it. It has to go through an agent. It has to get to a destination. And I will trace all of that. We will trace them. That is the way to go. Already, I have written to the Bureau of National Investigations or National Investigation Bureau to commence investigation. Mr. Speaker, in winding up, we are giving some immediate directives. The procurement unit was merged with the estate department. The head of procurement was jettisoned, and the head of estate department was then made to take care of the procurement. So I've written to ECG immediately that should be decoupled, and a qualified procurement expert should man the procurement unit. Secondly, we've reduced their budget from 500 million to 250. But we must pay for the power producers. Today, the bill is over 80 billion in the energy sector. Over 80 billion. If we don't do something, this sector would collapse.
Yetwa ensem so na Bank of Ghana sika krabia batan ewo mei emo ekobase banks ahoro no ebetumi de bosia momamfo a Bank of Ghana ene de susudia na standard no eba se de ombetumi di ensihu atoso e de ama omamfo ne friend policy rate na nkaye ohanche mu aduonu enson 27% enei wahia e de atodwase watum e de akọ ohanche mu aduonu enwotwe 28%.
Undercapitalized banks to safeguard the stability and soundness of the banking sector. The committee observed that the fiscal stance was expansionary in 2024, and this has created significant fiscal impulses and a liquidity overhang that needs to be carefully managed. The strong liquidity conditions could spill over into other segments of the economy and derail the disinflation path. While the government has signaled a strong commitment to fiscal consolidation, monetary policy restraint, we think, is required going forward. Now, while headline inflation has declined marginally, it remains a concern. Both food and non-food inflation are significantly above expectation, and core inflation remains elevated. While food inflation was driven largely by supply-side factors, preventing the second-round effects from such increases will be essential. The persistent inflation dynamics over the past year, partly driven by both fiscal and monetary policy missteps, will require a policy reset to re-anchor the disinflation process. Now, to restore price stability going forward will require a tight monetary policy stance, strong liquidity management, and commitment to the 2025 budget, which seeks to reset the fiscal consolidation process. Now, on the monetary policy decision, under the circumstances, the committee, by a majority decision, and I mentioned majority decision. For the first time, we are using a majority decision, unlike the unanimous decisions we have used in the last many years since the framework began. And so by a majority decision, the committee decided to raise the monetary policy rate by 100 basis points to 28%, and this is meant to re-anchor the disinflation process. As inflation becomes firmly anchored, and I want to emphasize that, as inflation becomes firmly anchored, as we see the next readings of inflation and we see declines, the committee will reassess the scope for a gradual easing in the policy stance. Now, let me say a few words on the additional operational measures. As usual, apart from the monetary policy decision itself, we often also announce a number of operational measures. Now, so in addition to the adjustment in the policy rate, we are implementing some complementary measures which are meant to strengthen liquidity management and enhance monetary policy transmission. And I want to give you three of those. First is we are introducing a longer dated 273-day instrument, which is meant to augment the existing sterilization toolkit. Secondly, we plan to intensify the monitoring of banks' net open positions to ensure compliance. And now all this is meant to ensure stability in the FX markets. Then the last one is to review the current structure of the cash reserve ratio. You know, there's the dynamic ratio and there are also
Yetwa ensem no eso High Court ene akwasetina won kran hanomo na wonomo ahye kane Director General ya na wodas National Signal Bureau ano oru akwabena edubo ahen wone ne yere Angela Ejeibuatin yema wono bill na bill no 160 million Ghana cedis ene da wonom echiso mpanyimfo kyese ebra na wowura yi eye CEO a woda adwuma na no contract bi ya yede ma ye $7 million cyber defense system contract ya yede ma ye ne hu sika sem no ese bia fa ne nsase enu nti ma ye kwokye no march bosumida na etoso aduonu na no na court high court akwa asetene na wo se ye ma one ne ho kafo nyina bill na afi ebrepam no wonfo won ho enkwokye yiyoko afi wo betu kwan so a wonhwe se yiyoko ama wonom kwan ansa na wonom abrechi afi omanmu.
The court, and the people have incarcerated because you will know that if your liberty is at the sufferance of those who have captured you, you never go home. And now the custody of your peace and it's going to report the court bail on reasonable terms. If you see that the woman's one was without justification, so we are going to go and ensure that whatever is necessary will be done before the registry. Not them, but they are saying that because of their safety, they want to take them to the place. And when the order is ready, they can come back and satisfy the conditions before the registrar and not Yoko. And today they can have their freedom. It's over executed because what they have with them is more than what the judge has ordered. Unless there's bad faith, I don't see why they shouldn't go home today.
Ena na wotwe na arehosam etisiye ewo kumase ebra na chese eja anu wadin eja pa anu wahye atiasi chese lane kase ye blue lane omoto mpabo a eben hello fm chipe na sade ye hye de na esewani nse ka kire don hwe nan ne eche na eja no yentumi enum no ekoba ne sa enne NPP fo abobodi akopiem ewo ho a wo mu su ne wo esu ekowi ase watene wonsa 100,000 Ghana cedis odi amawom.
Na watwe pepepenie na obepiem ewo Kumase adum railways honoma na nya asam keto ejaja mpantu bi to honoma ejapade mpempempempem na ahye ama adwadifo etwa adwo enamso ama enipakuo ahodo amanyofo ombepiem ewo honoma adwadifo no omochechire omowre na omapesika kakra ediaba eno na New Patriotic Party MPP National Executives na Ashanti Regional Executives omobepiem wo baby eja no hye ya omo ne adwadifo no etwetwe nkoma omo Shomo Shade. Nampanyimfo a womo ebepiem eye General Secretary edema MPP Amanyoku no Lawyer Justin Frimpong Kodua afi Asantema tetreni edema MPP Amanyoku no Bernard Mtwibosi ako chairman wuntumi na dodo na frɛ no na National Organizer Henry Nana Boache namra General Secretary kasa na wo kyerɛ sɛ womo baaya womo krom nsɛm 100,000 Ghana cedis de boa adwadifo no afi obesa srɛ aban mpanyimfo sɛ omo hwɛ sɛ adwadifo no ankasa no sene no musitie no omo ankasa entimi mo amapata na mmom omo hwe so mmeye ne yie se de be ya asadache je to honoma Ghana National Fire Service for ebetimi abedum no entem
ene na otwe pepepepepepe asabi asam kase eto yenuamo a omo edwemu ewa MPP party no na ye boaboa ye ho yenisa ye party penifo ni biaba a ye raba o medical ba ha yenisa di pado do na so beba ha na wo hwe se de jana ahye ewa ha na ebru adwo ne ntiahye so na ya ba ha no se party ba ko no edi kan yes ne se NDC aba omotu so o mampani yera mahama eni se wa ba ha ye dana se de yes ne se de atromche ABC ewo framantem a aban treska ye de ma omo se ye fan sese ne embo omo no yes aban se Sraban. Yammed for Nano, Emilio Medjuma, no Metram. You was Cabia, Yafa for no. Then people part in your buyer. You can say 100,000 Ghana cedis. I have 1 billion, 36 yes, I'm on Francis here. Say normal parliament may be free. I am free. Now, part you know, I feel part now. You have nothing. Now, your MPs for part you know for yes, so baby, and now you fundraising. Yeah, you have 1 month. Let's my pigeon and them. Say be a judge for no. Let's my say I come. I go your meduma.
Onimonyamfo Samuel Jinapo mrahwebedwane de ma de hye wo dan mango o de ato edwa ese wo srada o my Ghana braso ese ye ton Ghana ni chichiu ye kabima minka bi ya ye kuramu no e de kire wonum a e wo Sahel se de be ya won soso obehu hia se wo so kabima minka bu yimu eye.
I just want to make the point that in all our engagement with the Sahel, be it Burkina Faso, Mali or Niger, Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely important that we are reminded that Ghana is built on democratic principles. And Ghana is a country that upholds the tenets of rule of law, the principles of democracy. Ghana is a democratic country. So in everything we do to ensure sub-regional or regional integration, Mr. Speaker, we cannot jettison this fundamental foundation of the Ghanaian polity or Ghanaian society. And by that, Mr. Speaker, let me refer the House to Article 40 of our national constitution, specifically Chapter 6, the Directive Principles of State. Article 40 DIV, Mr. Speaker, states that in the dealings with other nations, the government shall, and I quote, the government shall promote and protect the interests of Ghana, and it goes on to say, adhere to the principles enshrined in, or as the case may be, the aims and ideals of, quote, the Treaty of the Economic Community of West African States, and it goes on in the United Nations, Organization of African Unity, Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, all these organizations promote the principles of democratic governance. Mr. Speaker, I need not emphasize that in Burkina Faso, we have a military junta. In Mali, we've had military takeovers. In Niger, the government there or the regime there is a military regime. And so, whilst we continue to urge the government, the foreign ministry, to pursue our foreign relations objective of regional integration, it's absolutely important, Mr. Speaker, that in so doing, we do not jettison the principles of democratic governance and work to restore democracy in Burkina Faso, work to restore democracy in Mali, work to restore democracy in Niger, and get to the situation ultimately where all of West Africa and all of Africa will be governed on the principles of democratic practices, and get to the point, Mr. Speaker, where the will of the people will be the will of God, and be the principle or the foundation on which governments are formed and on which citizens are governed as it is here in Ghana. Just because with these few words, let me lend my support to the motion and ask that this house adopts this report and lend its support to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so that ultimately Ghana's flag will fly high in the Committee of Nations. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Kwanchira for Penina Oda Africa Center for Entrepreneurship and Youth Empowerment ano hey Owura Emmanuel Akwa or the two Omampanyi John Dramani Mahama ene na ban enim se adaro mo se reset dia ene reset na reset be bia e ma ni teach you abanwum no yehu empuntuo ewo.
The return of the presidents was started on a very good note. Menemani bi oka so be oye. But a nise oma en nkrofo na bi ema omusuban na omuniye bi erodi nyama papa na hodo na oye no. I think some of the interventions no e wo so muhwe ni ye kakra. Again, may expect to say aban way be active than being reactive. It's when it comes to the little scarce resources that we have. And of course, there is something that governments are also OSU. I have seen, say, we are trying to, certain institutions, we are trying to monopolize it. And Cocoa board, you monopolize your cocoa way, you know. Now let's look at cocoa board. How they are saying cocoa board is struggle. We don't have to. Any say ben hokra. Yen share say if you cry. Yen share the test reports. The state-owned enterprise ayo. Yen share how abysmally they are performing. You know, any say the problems in Becca problems no. The privatization spree must work. World Bank aka. There's no two ways about that because in America no. Share what has been done elsewhere. Most of those economies, advanced economies, they're on a privatization spree. And how much more still your tax burden a lot on the local people. Then both type and say buying beer no with me as succeeding. Whether the NPP, whether the NDC, whether the CPP, any political party you can think of. Yes, baby are buying the all year any year. Yebe ka ho asem baby all year dey enso yebe bo na baso baby enso betimi abem near dey adwenkyere based on ye njuma ye wo ha no betimi nso dey aboa no yenso ye de beboa o man na eyi ma nyina
to be a research no find bibia eno ne ye hwe na dey solve your problems na esan say research my accurate data because we be use methodology we be use data we be analyze now analyze we are now draw conclusion now make recommendations and no na mranti ya ye na say ye ministries any agencies no mu nyina nya report ni bi na omo hwem no mo ho ministries ni departments a enkoyie no mo yiro mo no mo siesie niama because ya ma recommendations that we we anyway ebeboa mo man yakoso anything na research hu hia no aseye for no omo ya de ombeto aso no omo ye yima na etwam no a oye aseye for president ni ameka any say omo ma minister bia ni agencies omo ye research omo ma omo copy because yen yepe hard copies aya na eboa omo obi wo ho ni adaji te dan ka mu na ma na okan any CEOs no mu nyina omo kan because ye CEOs ni sika ye tua omo na omo nyina ebo omo ane ka na emoa yen na report we na beboa ma recommendations mu ye say ya say na beba we
Abuzanfo ye home so tiawa na yato nkra ye ba ye beto kase no so
Yema arefo nyina akwaba yetoa ensem no so ede amamo.
Yetoa so dia na yebohwi ede akọ Ahmed Swale ne nsem emu na omanfo beka ye beto dwa se yachi obi ewo sa abantie no ewuo ho. Na enra UTV dawro so ena yede asemi tu dwa se aposifo achi owura bi efre no Daniel Owusu Kranting. Na bra ye kan asem ni wie ye neche se nipa ase so wode mfoni to so ma ye hu nipa kro no na wode nipa foforo mfoni na akoto so ye papa ni munyamfo nimdefo a wabo ne bra na wasua na de akọ animu edi ne kui na afa ni mfoni koto so nti ye sre pachew se opanyin ya ni mfoni da so nyu ono na edi awuo no oyo obi ni munyamfo a wabo ne bra na Ghana ho wa mu die na nipa bu ni pa ni amano ni nyina ye rei ye kiremu pa dia wo ye president edema Ghana National Association of ADR Practitioners eno enanchen no PURC opanyin wadi dwuma e wo honomo ye ana wo ka board of directors no ho afei ye hwemu ebio so a wo san eye steering committee member edema International Transport Workers Union ya wonomo ewo Africa na afi Arab eni wiase nyina enti enye papa nimdefo abasiwa munyamfo owura Daniel Owusu Kranting yi ene yache na asem ne ho no da bi nyu ono a na emom Daniel Owusu Kranting foforo bi ya wotini ba bie wono ene yache no na enfomso na ba ye ma UTV dawro kase ebofo ekofa papa ni munyamfo mfoni beto so nti ye pacha woni asre Ghana de hye ene mu amu achichini benche ya mo frefre papa ni nyina se enye ono a ni huni asem oni Ghana ba ni asem oni ewu oni boni bia nti enfomso ene ye kase pa nti ye papa Daniel Owusu Kranting ye fasa akonya so na UTV ya pa ochew se de si ye no fa che yen enye enida ho ya nhyeda enfomso na aba enti sede oba sebia ku sebia kronto oja ne nan egu sre so a ye pepa ye ntwantwene papa fa che yen na ebi ensibio ye da ase
Ekuo bi ti se Asante Kotoko Society, Asante Man Community Foundation and Royal Society of Asante Researchers. Wo mu nyina e wa Asante Mantam emo. Won soma wo ka ene se enti asia pama e wo Ghana aban ene Ashanti Bauxite Limited entem no wo mani age ho no motai echi pampe.
Asante kuwa womudin de Asante Kotoko Society, afe Asante Man Community Foundation, ene Royal Society of Asante Researchers, etwanete kan se Rosaja, ewo Asante Mantam High and Central Fonshemu, ama Dr. Peter Chuma, waye board member, wada Asante Man Community Foundation ano ne kasa ye, en wade to abaina nimse wabesre, ye mining leasing, se yo omde beto abaina da nanim ne daso hono, wanshe na entum Dr. Peter Chumchire mu se July bosome de tosudunsia wa fimpimeni adunu enani mu ena mining leaser eda ABO ne Ghana Binance no womo adekwato mrahye nanim se womo nyintumu besine womunya enje entumu wasesa ABL nso beboa mo mining sikatichiu ewa twomamponua ene ni nkura ebe ne ben ho ene Ghana mamuni hina eno so ntina omo sre Ghana Binance se wanje sa lease no entum na nyina hini block B bauxite mining lease on se no wanyintum no muntimi emfanye aduma wato aso akire mu sesa wo hwe nhye da ebia ne aban no entema akire se ebia no ebe bie eye bauxite refinery ewo nyina hini na aboa ama mabunu bebre na anya aduma ye ewo atwomamponua abato mpeswa so ene Asante Mantam ha nyina eno sentina asanteman ekue esre aban ni se manimu ya wonhwe no wonje sanhye no entum
nyamia yadom ama bauxite deposit a ewonyere hine no yenya Ghana based company a mobile betu ye frɛ no Asante Bauxite Limited na wo mo hyehyɛ no eye kama a eye dutwam ni de edi kan ni sɛ o mobile besi refinery ewonyere hine refinery na ɛho sika ɛsom almost $3 billion kyerɛ sɛ o mu besi kuro sɛ de be ya o mu tu bauxite na ye mfa enko abrochire woro na emom ye be refine no ewo honom ama adwuma ba asantemam ya titi ne framam sempanyifo bi ene abaya kasa mumma parliament and ratify sa agreement na Asante Bauxite enhye na adwuma ase yesi afi mu ekọ bosome enan ni bosome miensa na ebekọ na wie yenti ho popoye bia enu nti se yefrɛ sem ntwerefo se yemra mesia ne yenka nkira aban ni se in fact se saa company we aban na amfa adwuma na ama wo mu se wo mra meyɛ de a ene ye mo ma company fufuro bi ama enti wo hwɛ se saa agreement wo be ratify na asomdwe emra na sebe asantema so enya bi a ɛyɛ.
Kwankyerɛfoɔ panyin ya oda konfa nochi aban asabia ano eye obenefo oche ademensa ye rade atodwa se empo sa ya asabia no ewo hawa hodo bebre a eni wo mu dwumadie se apomodin mu animdefo di asie no obeyi wo mfamu die bia boa se obehwe omanfo yie ebra waba se wo beje ayarehwe ewo ho.
Mensa and the Chief Executive Officer wada konfanoche aban ayaresabiano ano wose ayaresabiano gusua jane naso se wobema wo manfo no apomde mapa ejane naso no manfo no ho atimi ato wo mo ewa bibrem ha na afimpimeni aduanu nan abra na afe no ebawiye ya ayaresabiano ehwe wo moden bo mutimi bo na afe ni mu hina no na Professor Echiremu se ayaresabiano abon ho moden yie pa amanema bebre mu apeja eba no apomudin mu a ebi te se OPD cases se epeja de mu afa emergency admissions, radiology services, laboratory services and surgical operations no eyade apeja mu yie pa. Professor Demensa esanto aso Echiremu se ewo mu se ayaresabia no efo ha bi mu ete se emfidie ene ade omde beye adwuma nanso ne hinachi no wo mu gina mo na so beye adwumaden aboa amomanfo no apomudin agina brane.
The hospital registered impressive improvements in most areas of its operations, infrastructure and equipment base. This resulted in improved performance in most of its service outputs as compared to the previous year. The daily OPD attendance at the hospital rose from 1,259 in 2023 to an average of 1,302 last year. What this means is that we are now attending to over 1,300 patients from all over the country on a daily basis. The stunning transformation of wards A4, A5, and A3 under the first phase of the Asante Hene's Hill Konfanoche project. Thanks to the intervention of His Majesty, the dilapidated old G blocks at the hospital are well on their way to being transformed into one of the most modern inpatient facilities in Africa, if not the world. As the hospital marks its 70th anniversary this year, management wishes to reiterate its commitment to repositioning it as a leading center for subspecialist and super specialist care, training and research in Africa.
Eno achire no Professor Christian Ajare wono na ye provost awada College of Health Sciences ewo KNUST wono so esrem panifo geda konfanoche aban ayaresabia nano se womo ayarefo no hu ehia womo na womo enhwe omo yi.
This esteemed teaching hospital has played a colossal role in healthcare delivery in Ghana and continues to make remarkable strides amid all the challenges. Konfanoche Teaching Hospital should continue to think big and commit their might and all into improving the health of its immediate communities, the country and neighboring countries.
Oswafo hwanwodi ne ho nsem eso Honorable John Abdullahi Jinapo waka ne ho ntam se ekwan bia so containers bebo apem ahasan aduonum enso 1357 Electricity Company of Ghana dia ayira ana ammem de afitema port no bebia wo bia obehu.
Contrary to the 2,500 figure that was given when we got to the port, 1,300 containers and over could not be accounted for, which means they were missing. Let me put on record that these things have been happening since 2019. And as you can see for yourself, based on where we went, it's a syndicate that has been operating for some years now. As minister, I've taken a decision to break this syndicate. We would chase everybody, pursue every organization that has been operating this cartel. Clearly, as you can see, these are ECG cables. They are meant to be used by ECG. but they end up in these factories and then they melt them in their smelter and produce aluminium rods. That is criminal. I've realized that some misguided element wants to play the NDC MPP politics. Let me assure them that is not going to work. As minister, I've sworn an oath, and it's my duty to ensure that the right thing is done. We would pursue them and ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book. We will do everything we can to trace these containers because they have serial numbers, they have manifest. And let me thank the port authorities and the Director General of the Ghana Ports for cooperating with us and providing us with information. And also to thank the general public. They have been providing the security agencies with information that has led to the arrest of these people. Where we are here, as you can see from behind, a lot of ECG cables stuck in this warehouse, and they've all bolted. Indians and Chinese people, they've run away. So far, some people have been arrested, and we would ensure that the law takes its course. Why we have this problem is because if you look at the records, and I have the report here, in 2014, ECG's planned procurement was 1.397 billion. By the end of the year, they procured 8.2 billion. And so they engaged in frivolous over expenditure, procured items that they did not have money to clear, and that is what has brought us this far. The same with 2023. Their planned procurement was less than 1 billion. They ended up procuring 8.3 billion. That is more than 7.3 billion over and above what was approved for them. So if you look at the records, in 2022, they procured 1.3 billion. In 2023, they procured 8.3 billion. In 2024, they procured 8.2 billion. Way above what was approved for them. More than 700%. And so let me make it clear. Those who think that they can engage in political football, those who think they can use this to try and equalize, it will not work. Since 2019, this crime is being perpetrated on the state. The then government slept on it. This government will not allow this to continue. And as minister, I would ensure that we curtail this, we follow and apprehend those responsible, and retrieve the containers. In simple terms, I want my containers. Simple as that. And wherever the containers are, we'll trace them. And those we've apprehended, we'll not just prosecute them, we'll go to court and seek an order to sell those assets there to defray the cost so that we use that money to invest in the grid system and to make power delivery available and reliable.
Ahwefo ye sense ramona ya to nkra bio ye ba ye de nsam na aka
Yama arefo nyina akwaba yetoa ensem no so edi amamo. Say die abeto dwane se emabunu yi ene etramo yi wo mo enom no mo nom afekwa do mutumi kikabo mo ama yesi bibi di red na wo chirema wo se die ese emabunu e wo bunu east mantam imno empanyimfo nso ano a ebe hadwi
Enubone nom eyade baako a eha Ghana mebunu papa na sese de ya ba betomo eye red ene ye wonam wayeso unim red enyasem kuma dwuma edi Ghana mebunu no enye bi ne kura na UTV kase ye de ani afemu a ene ebinum atwetwe nkomo afasa red yi eho red no mo de bai se de be ya se wo ko yaw kase mu pa ye de be ban wo ama wo yaw no ano abrase na so mebunu ne de omo yusu no kwan foforo so ye ne kofi adodo na abo ne nsamrane se agenkwa twetwenkomo ochiremu se waye de obetimi biada se ready ka wonu mu biem na so no ojaye nyai
uni red adekoko uni red ena majuma na me ye nti me ya juma kakra na mable ena me se so mo se red bi wo ha ono ma enye o hwe dia ma me konum bi nhwe na me no ma me nya ho de nti ma me no hwe eno na di me bra mu oh, me no ma me boost immune system no kama. It means my system no. Me ni paduana eden. Ayedin. Oh, and na me tru ke kame pa na me honama kwa baabi. It means me nya bi no mpene ekọ. Untimi ye den ye kese. Wa wudidi pa so hu se even mu kure pija. Wo ye picture work. Wona mkwan so kra. Assembly cry we catch on enya asem abufu kra bo so no afa ni serious na obu fu abufu no so fa hwe mba red ne de enya de pa oh ma try so minyanka me jai nso ntimi
Edwechi yene panyi baako a wo hwe adwemuyade Ebenezer Jesse owo Nkranza St Theresa's Hospital edin komo efa red yi ehu
so binom tramadol what they call red 225 250 and stuff ebese na akoma emane wenya akoma yare ne kidney betima say ahrawa betima say because of surgery no na amanipa no oye obeye bedding emana busia obeye nipa jenjan mpempe no ombenya adremu ka yare kakra ebi ni se oba to aduro no mu domu a ontini entrim ana ebi mo nso psychosis setting na enyina ebehia bebrebe no kon we so a different person altogether ana mani nyina emmoa emanipa duanu ka enne kama
Manso dade ase nananom achankonwaye wo ho e de adesre eto mpanyufo anim se wosre wonom a se uba Amanse South District e dia kamya ye se niamwa nketenketi bia etimi mu omanfo asetene mu epeja konkan ne ebeka se wonipa bitia ne ho dwono owonkania suku wo ho akwan ye ne saa niema no esinto wom enti wosre se yemekọ wonom emwa
Onyina owo manso dade ase ene omanfo ahodo atikro num nyina kire se enam se suku eni honti no enei ama esuban a eyesuban bone pa na ekoso ewo mabunu a womwo empotem honim womse obi epesi okosuku a agiso otwa kwantenten bre ema ne ha hipoto ne ho ansa no kokoro foforo so akwakonya ade asua eno na aka ho bia makro num emaya ne mabunu no womu dodo na ntimi enkosuku nti enei woso babedu manso dade asewa empre wanyinsen kwa na ekosro eno nso danche akro no bofitei omudodo na nso eyebi ne nyina eyesuku a omunya bi enkonti womo friends some trofo enhyiamu ewo manso dade ase no Amanse South mensini no ewo asantemantem eno de sansemi etudwa wose yiwe etu nchen a womu ni ayaresabia bia wo ho enti edru baabi a obi timi free mu pass awuo no nanka ebi ayaresabia wo wange betimi asia no nanso nam saji so mutwa kwantenti ansana omonya ayaresenti no obahwe na nipa kro na frim womso edi aban mrem no mepe ayaresabia kuma bi ma wo ma won hododo mo benya baabi akwaji ayaresa
we de mesra abai dade asikure ni ekura edi mu kakara enti me here school ni kuro mu ye fa japade o hapa gold o mfa ne hanom koko o hanom enti misre abai na daworoma na kamenza ase me ne aboafo aboam kakra enti abai no e me so masene na me so minya school okuro mu e de to so ye yakwan manso yakwan nyekora ama na nse ha wo bese haye enti misra abai na
sese ye me man ni ma ye nyina sabe na hwemi woni abai wonya adwuma nye sabe ma sori no wo adwuma ya okonom tramo aye dai abe ma sori wo adwuma ya de no ofre ni bi wo sori fo okro kwa wo dwale wo pentem wo kona adwuma wo be ba nyime no nse wo be dware ada ba se ko base mabunu wo krom ni enya adwuma nye aye akohwibra ni akola 16 years 13 years no wonyem mpre wanyin seni ni o ma bi aye koso no ko se enkoye maye
o mi se nyeku adwuma yenyeku adwuma yensase wo ha nyina no manse naje ene koko wo mo koko nyina manse aje koko ni adwuma no so anka mo gie na e wase enya bi ye no wo mo so mo fa maye sese na boy sambo to mo nyina no obia ni afum dwuma ha e obia ni sa no dwuma manse adwuma wo mo timi wi kakra kora no wo ko ese odi application to kora na training abefa se be ye no wo ko duru ha yesi wa feli eti ebe hia se adwuma no so mo se ye wo mo pa boys ne maba wa no maba ye adwuma ne dia training ne dia wa ko bi no wan pass kora mo fo mo hye masters ne nkyai no mo nkyira mo ebise nipa na no ba ye master no fitin ya no ye master wo fa obi nkyai no ba ye master no seze tia no ogugo sa wa hwe bedum ne bi no na kwaya akro no sam
abusuan focus ye ni nyina esi monka ye wani fa aseda emma Pepsodent aposin papa se wo da sori a eya bomodin afa bi choose wo sin be fita kama ebebo amo asre na okoda nso na de bi atwitwe sen Pepsodent eguma horo bebre Pepsodent cavity fighter afi Pepsodent charcoal enie Pepsodent herbal ana Pepsodent triple protection enremu bia onsaka na de twitwe sen ma wo sen ye fe wo sen ye fita o pesa wo sra wo besra bonsi he ebre bia a enka bia emma onum Pepsodent edamase enwumrei se muso yi mu a ede ensem no ebae aseda ekọ ede ama Palace African Styles omo ene pam African we fefefe ede mame SCC wager ena womo ewo wo ben DVL no se okọ a Palace ebetumi ahwew ama ho aye fefefe
so ena abusuafo matade ehwemi eye TMC fashion womo ene pam ehwemi woni ba bia ese amasaman abiase honomo ena omudi omukrim pacho omonsa no ofepa omo pamba ne mema ne manyina nti wadaroma eya no afre TMC fashion e wo 0240 308437 0240308437 so na o send measurement ne ma wo mo be poma ma wo abekọ ho so a omo already made e wo ho a obetumi akoyi de wo pe na wahye enuanum mienu anwumre ye sommo eye me ama sapon kuma jesse minimini aba
obahima efiache